Okay, in lesson 1.4, you learned how to take a subject like yo, tú, él, ella, usted, and combine it with an action like vivir, hacer, escuchar, lavar, and decir. Let's see how much you remember. When I'm talking about myself, what is the modification I make to the verb? And what was the gesture I do with my hand to suggest that change at the end of the verb? So if I say yo, what is it I do to the verb? For example, let's take vivir. What do I do to the verb? Okay, well, the gesture I did was I dropped the ending of the verb and I put o in its place. Huh? So it's o. Okay? So yo, for example, yo vivo. If tú is the subject, I'm speaking to you in a familiar fashion. What is the ending of the verb? What's the gesture of my hands and what's the ending? Yeah, in the video you saw me go like this. I put the sound on the end of the verb. So it becomes tú vives. When I'm speaking about somebody, él or ella, what is it that I do to the verb, and what's the gesture that I make? Okay, I take the whole verb vivir and I chop off the end. Vive, vive. Okay, and that's not just when I talk about somebody. It's also when I speak to someone respectfully. I chop the ending off the end of the verb. Vive or hace or escucha or lava or dice. Okay, good. So let's see. Let's try and form a few brief phrases together. Let's say I'm talking about myself and I do this action right here. Okay, how would I say that? Okay, yo vivo. Huh? And I'm speaking, let's keep the same subject, yo. I'm talking about myself and I do this action. Right, yo escucho. Uh-huh. And how about if I do this action? Still talking about myself. What would that be? Okay, yo lavo. Yo lavo. You'll notice, however, that I skipped two verbs intentionally here because they have what I call bizarre, strange, extraño, weird endings to them, unexpected endings, irregular ones, kind of like me right now. And what were those verbs that have an extra sound you didn't expect to hear in addition to the o? Okay, one was hacer. You'd expect it would be yo hago, but it's not yo hago, it's yo hago. Yo hago. So that's called an irregular form, an unusual one. You have to simply memorize a form like that. You can't reason your way to it. What was the other verb that has strange additional sound just before the o? Okay, well, it's the same sound. It's the g sound just before the o. And it was this verb right here, decir. Yo, you don't say diso like you wish you would. It's yo digo. Yo digo. Okay? Well, let's now switch to tú. I'm speaking, or yes, if I'm speaking to a person familiarly, not showing them particular respect necessarily, how will I modify the verb? What's the gesture and the sound at the end? Right. So let's take this verb right here. How would I say this idea? What would that be? Tú vives. Tú vives. How about this right here? Right. Tú haces. How about this idea right here? Yeah. Tú escuchas. Etc. Let's try talking about a guy. Let's say it's a boy we're talking about here. How would I say that this boy does this action? Okay, it would be él lava. Very good, él lava. Let's say that he does this action. So he does this action. How do I say that? How do I form that phrase? Él escucha. Very good. Él escucha. And let's say, talking about this girl this time. A girl is doing this. How would I express that idea? Okay. Ella dice. Ella dice. Decir, a chop, becomes dice. You notice there was a change from it changed to e. I say decir. But when I chop the ending of the verb, I also change this vowel. It becomes dice, ella dice, okay? And let's say last of all, I want to say you speaking formally, respectfully to somebody, that you do this. How would I say that? Okay, usted, it's vivir, vive. Usted vive. Okay, let's take a little longer statement now, try and form a complete idea, a complete sentence. And we'll do 2 or 3 examples of this. How would you say, talking about yourself, that you, in other words, how would I say, I do this action, referring to classical music. Do you need my hands to help you? I'm saying this, this, and then this. Okay, that would be yo escucho música clásica. Yo escucho música clásica. How would you communicate to somebody who is a friend, a peer, someone your age whom you know very well, you're familiar with them? How would you express to them that they do this? Oh, let me change verbs here. They do, no, not that one either. How about they do this and they end out saying hola? Okay, that would be this, this, and hola. Tú dices hola. Tú dices hola. Okay? One more example. Speaking respectfully to somebody, how would you say to that person that you do this, and I'll use dishes. Los trastes. Los trastes. Okay, that'd be usted lava. You chop the ending of the verb off there. Usted lava los trastes. Usted lava los trastes. I hesitated for a moment about using lavar a moment ago. Do you know why I did that? It's because there's something special that happens when you use lavar, but you don't do the action to the dishes or to your clothing. You do the action to yourself, like washing your face or washing your hands. And that's something special you're going to see in the midst of the lesson that we'll look at in just a moment. But let me just quickly explain what it is. Usually you say, yo lavo, tú lavas, él or ella lava, usted lava. That's when you are washing something else. When you're washing yourself, there's an additional little word you've got to add in there, which you probably heard as you were going through the lesson. And it's called a reflexive pronoun. It doesn't really matter what it's called. It's there to show that you're doing the action to yourself. Now, this is very early in your studies. If you don't think to use it, if I were your teacher, I would accept your statement. I would be delighted if you could say, yo lavo las manos. But that's not accurate. It's not actually correct. Huh? You say, yo me lavo las manos, because you're doing this action to yourself, to a part of your own body. You would say, for example, talking about your face, I'll use hands again, because we use that in the lessons. Tú te lavas las manos. But if you just said, tú lavas las manos, I think that's pretty good. You'd say, él se lava las manos. But if you're just saying, él lava las manos, that's pretty good. You should be pretty proud of yourself. Usted se lava la cara, which is the face. Usted se lava la cara. But if you just ended out saying, usted lava la cara, that's pretty good. So in any case, we'll deal more of that as we get into the lesson. In fact, I think this is the time. Let's take a look at lesson 1.4 so that you can learn how to practice for the test that you'll take in the course of the next class. Here we go. Okay, here we are at the beginning of lesson 1.4. And as I've indicated, there are 3 of those 4 buttons at the top which have nothing to do with you whatsoever. This is for the teacher, this is for the teacher, this one's for international students who don't benefit from the English instruction that you're receiving. And this button, however, is an important button. It's the one that takes you directly to the test, skipping all the intermediate steps before the test, the sections that precede the test. So here we go. I'll click on it and we go directly to the test. And as you see, the stop signs indicate there are 4 different forms of this test. The stopwatch indicates to you this is a timed test, and the time next to the stopwatch indicates this is how much time you have to complete the test. So actually the teacher typically will click on the stopwatch because they'll be timing you and testing you. But for the sake of practice, it would be good for you to open the stopwatch to time yourself. So we'll click on Run. and then we'll choose always on top and move the stopwatch up out of the way. And here we go. Now you see there are 4 different forms of the test. If I click on 2, it'll take me to the second form. Let me scroll up a little bit. Click on 3. Here's the third form of the test. And I click on 4. There's the last form of the test. All 4 forms cover the same material. They're just slightly different so that there's not the possibility the person could memorize the answers. I want you to understand what you're saying and not merely memorize the answers. So we'll start with test number 1. And in test number 1, I'm not going to time it. I'm going to talk you through the answers so that you might understand the grammatical points or the structural elements that are necessary to succeed in this test. So here we go. This is one complete sentence. There are 12 sentences that you must form in 60 seconds. We're going to say here, yo, and by the way, I'll use my hands occasionally, but you don't have to use your hands as you're taking the test. Yo vivo, right? We drop the ir at the end of vivir and put o in its place. Yo vivo en Detroit. Number 2, now we're talking about a girl. Ella, we'll take vivir, we'll chop it. Vive en Detroit. Now we're going to change to talking about la cama, which is a vocabulary word you hopefully picked up in the midst of 1.4, talking about the bed. So, él hace la cama. Next, yo, and here's one of those weird ones, those irregular verbs. And so you have to simply remember this form, that yo is hago, or yo is when using decir is digo. Those are the 2 irregular, strange forms. So this is yo hago la cama. Next one down, this is easier again. We just say ella, we chop the ending of hacer, hace la cama. Ella hace la cama. We're halfway there. Next one down. Yo, this is easy. Escuchar. Just take the R off the end, put the O in its place. Yo escucho la música, or just música. Yo escucho música. Next one. Usted, now with escuchar, I'm going to just chop the ending off. Escucha. Usted escucha música. Now we come to 3 sentences, in fact, which deal with actions you do to yourself. Remember I talked about that earlier in this video? I said this is something which is unusual, it's different, it's challenging, but it's not necessary as far as I'm concerned. Your teacher might be a little tougher about this, but as far as I'm concerned, not necessary to master this at this point. When you do an action to yourself, you don't just say yo lavo, you say yo me lavo. When you're saying to another person that you do the action to yourself, instead of saying just tú lavas, I must say tú te lavas. When I tell another person or talk about another person and say that person does the action to themselves, I don't just say él or ella lava, I say él or ella se lava, and I say the same when I'm speaking to a person respectfully. Usted se lava, not just usted lava. But to be practical and merciful, if you're not using this me or te or se in these sentences, I personally think you should get full credit for this response on the test. But your teacher may do what he or she desires. So, usted, I take lavar, chop it, lava las manos. Truly, it's usted se lava las manos. But what's a little say between friends, huh? Después, yo, it's really yo me lavo las manos, but let's just say yo lavo las manos. Next example, ella lava las manos. It's really ella se lava las manos, but come on. Yo, and now decir, this is again one of those bizarre ones. So yo digo hola. Yo digo hola. And then last of all, usted dice hola. And stop. At this point, the test would be finished, and your teacher would move on to evaluate the next person, and you'd go to some other activity at that point. Okay, let's go to test number 2. And this time, in test number 2, I'm still not going to time it, but what I'm going to do is I will explain to you the things you need to remember, but without using my hands. So let's go through test number 2. Here we go. Él, I'm going to take vivir, I'm going to chop it. Él vive en Detroit. Tú, I remember with tú, I always have a s sound at the end of my verb. So tú vives en Detroit. Number 3, I'm with usted, just like with él and ella. I chop the end off the verb, the r, the R sound. So usted vive en Detroit. I go to number 4 here. The verb is hacer. Usted is still the subject. I'm talking to someone formally. So usted, don't do the ch, by the way. It's not really Spanish. That's just my little sound to help you remember the change you make to the verb. Usted hace la cama. Next. Tú, remember that with tú, I put a sound at the end. So tú haces la cama. Next. With él, ella, or usted, I chop off the R, the sound at the end, the r at the end. So él escucha música. Next, remember the s that goes with tú as a subject. So tú escuchas música. Después, ella. So ella escucha música. And now we come to those unfortunate reflexive verb situations where you're doing the action yourself. If you just say él lava las manos and tú lavas las manos, you're good in my book. But truly it should be él se lava las manos and tú te lavas las manos. Next, number 11. Él, now drop the ending of decir, drop the r off the end. Él dice hola. And then the same for ella. Él and ella always sound identical, the form of the verb. So ella dice hola. Okay, let's try number 3 now. And number 3, I'm going to kind of pretend to be you. That is to say, I'm going to speak maybe like you're speaking right now, and maybe more at the pace at which you're speaking, and time myself. So here we go. I'm a student. Go. El vivir. No. Chop the ending of the verb. El vive en Detroit. Ella vive en Detroit. You don't really pronounce like that, do you? Forgive me. I'm going to stop insulting you. I'll pronounce properly. Usted vive en Detroit. Yo hago. No, that's the weird one with the glasses upside down. Yo hago la cama. Tú haces la cama. Yo escucho. No, yo escucho música. Tú escuchas música. Usted lava las manos. That's really something else, but that's good enough. Ella lava las manos. Wasn't it se lava las manos? Anyway, él dice hola. Usted dice hola. Ella dice hola. Oh, it's too late. That's pretty close. Maybe you lost a point or two there at the very end on number 12. And so be sure that today you repeat and repeat and repeat these verbs or these tests until you're sure that you can complete them within 1 minute. Because you don't want to lose a point or two at the very end simply because you ran out of time like I just did there. Okay, for the last one, test number 4, I'm going to take it like a man. I'm going to take it just like I am who I am. So you can just listen to it. Here you go. 1, 2, 3. And I won't speed or race through it. I'll speak at a nice, rational, reasonable pace. Tú vives en Detroit. Ella vive en Detroit. Usted hace la cama. Yo hago la cama. Él escucha música. Yo escucho música. Ella escucha música. Usted se lava las manos. Tú te lavas las manos. Ella se lava las manos. Tú dices hola. Ella dice hola. Stop. I had 33 more seconds and I wasn't racing. If you practice sufficiently, as you go through this activity today independently after this video is finished, maybe not in 27 seconds, but I bet you some of you will finish in 45. So in any case, I'm going to set you free now to study the test at the end of lesson 1.4. And when I see you in the next video, it'll be to explain to you on day number 5 how it is that you actually take the test, whether it's with a teacher in class or if it's remotely with me or with another instructor teaching you at a distance. Okay, see you next video. Practice hard. Bye-bye.